Well, it's certainly warming up on the streets of the country's capital this morning, as it is inside the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. We're going to look at a couple of tenets of Witness F's testimony yesterday with Eldred de Klerk before we look at some of the bigger institutional issues that this is basically showing us, the anatomy of which is going to be needed to be looked at quite closely in the future. So let's start then with some of the morning headlines. And I shared this Sowetan story this morning. Castle Matale, the Deputy Police Minister, denying claims that he put pressure on the Office of Suspended Deputy Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya to arrest celebrity blogger Musa Kaula. Now, Eldred, it brings up a couple of different things, because we see the name of the head of organized crime here in Gauteng. This is Major General Shibiri, having played a role allegedly, according to Witness F's testimony, saying that people like Kat Matlala were good people, essentially, and sharing the arrest warrant with him, and also, in a way, involving Matlala in this arrest itself. These are concerning themes. We'll talk about what the president is doing about that, but what are your thoughts?
Well, it's concerning on a number of levels. One, who gets roped into an investigation, with what kind of authority? You need to be an authorized peace officer to be able to effect an arrest warrant. Otherwise, you're effecting a civilian arrest, which is fine. We all have the power to engage, to arrest somebody. But if you do it on the basis of a warrant, you got to be a peace officer. Essentially, and we don't know if Kat Matlala is a peace officer. I don't think he is. He may have multiple personalities and multiple connections. We know that much. The other problem is the office itself and the abusive office that comes with this idea that you can use, by proxy of the fact that you're in an office, you can instruct others and use the authority that we vest in you for others to do your bidding. That is of particular concern when we look at what has become routine practice with those we entrust with public office.
I mean, it looks so bad, and it's just giving us a little taste of some of the deeper rot that could allegedly be at the heart of our law enforcement complex. There's an important judgment that we're expecting in Gauteng today. It's not the North Gauteng High Court. I think it's the South Gauteng High Court, or the Johannesburg High Court, ruling on businessman Suleiman Karim's urgent bid to avoid testifying before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. We touched on it a little bit yesterday, but he is the first person to take the commission head on. The commission's not taking it lying down. They're fighting back and saying that if he doesn't come, it's going to set a bad precedent. How do you expect things to go, and why is this such an important aspect of what relates to the commission's work?
Well, it's important for a number of reasons. One, we see in more and more commissions, and it's likely we may have more in the future, because it's one of the recourses that a president has to consider what's going on and provide options for further action and intervention. So when you challenge the Commission Act, or the procedures that Commission has to follow in terms of the amount of information they need to give you, the readiness to be able to testify, the right not to implicate yourself, all of those concerns, the right to fair process, are commissions and the way they work undermining that? That is something for an independent judiciary to consider. And if today it goes against the commission, expect others to follow the same course. If it goes against businessman Karim and he is asked to come and testify, if he's forced to and there's an investigation, he can then say he's coming to testify under duress, and that, remember, because this is not a court proceeding, but he can come, he can say he's doing so under duress. Whatever's found against him will prejudice him when he does eventually maybe end up in court. That's a political conundrum which we'll leave to the legal-minded to sort out.
The thing is, Justice Madlanga says that if the court rules against Karim, he will still be forced to testify even without a prior statement. As you say, and to our viewers, we've got to watch those court proceedings really, really closely. And maybe given the outcome today, you and I will have another discussion tomorrow morning to look at the implications. I want to go back to Major General Richard Shibiri, though, because it's interesting, not even a week ago, the president announcing that tasked him a number of things he asked for, look into suspensions or look into the prima facie evidence that's already been provided. There's already this body of evidence that's starting to build against Major General Shibiri. Talk to us about the significance of his office and being caught up in what we read about in the morning press and what we're hearing at the commission itself.
Absolutely, because one of the things we've spoken about is the nature of police and the way the police work. You defer to somebody who's of a superior rank to you. Those under you are called subordinates. They subject to your instruction, and even though you're not supposed to follow an unlawful instruction, if it's marginal and if it's something you're able to do as a subordinate, you do it without question. So if somebody sits in an office where they seemingly have unbridled access to resources and people and to influence, it's of concern that if they're using that office for political ends, to go after and maybe even silence critics at a political level, or people who have a voice, who object to something that you're doing, or maybe even have a different point of view to you, can you use your office to silence them? That is of deep concern, because if you're doing it on that end, what else are you doing to be able to further a more criminal end or a political influencing end?
You know, what's concerning in all of this is we're not talking about we are talking about small players, because Witness F, in relation to
Absolutely.
the other names named, is much smaller in terms of his power. But when you have major names implicated, you know, the head of really important enforcement institutions in the country caught up in the minutiae of policing and in potential influence peddling, that's really cause for concern. And one of the things I wanted to ask you was, and we touched on it lightly at 6 o'clock, was, is this a Gauteng KZN problem? You said no, it isn't. What could this catalyze countrywide?
Well, one of the things is beyond having a spotlight on it, and I think we're now sitting in a place where people have a vested interest in what happened in the Madlanga. They can start to understand what has become almost normal across the country, and that corruption is endemic. So if that is in fact so, we as a country have to take a sober look at how do we proceed. And if we can ever get to the point through this intervention and decisive political action and political will, are we ever going to get to a point where ordinary citizens who every day do the right thing expect those who we vest with public office and public authority to also do the right thing? When is ethical behavior going to become the norm? Because, Iman, it is the norm for the person who's sweeping the street, it's the norm for most people standing around here, and it's the norm that they want to do the absolute right thing.
I actually wanted Morena to show our viewers the street sweeper, because I think it's so metaphorical what you're saying about this commission being an opportunity to be that new broom that allows us to begin to sweep at least one portion of South Africa clean at a time. We also said at the very beginning, Eldred, that there were no complete saints and no complete sinners in all of this, although our opinions might differ now, months into the commission. That we look at Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi as that broom, in a sense, that Morena's focusing on now, to begin to open a corner of South African society that we need swept clean. He essentially becomes a whistleblower in all of this. How's he looking as that metaphorical broom?
Well, one of the things he's done is surface it. We now need to go and find the evidence, unfortunately, to substantiate what he said, to be able to make sure that we don't just have an allegation, but we have sufficient to understand that there are individuals who are corrupt, but we also have an institution that actually has to be transformed. So it's enough sometimes to surface something, and you may not be the one who has all the information. Remember, he was very careful at the beginning, saying that what he's doing and what he's putting in front of us is the voice of others and has the support of others, and he's also speaking on behalf of more than himself. And it's those others who are now slowly coming to the fore and filling out the picture going forward.
The thing is, I mean, how powerful was and is Vusimusi Kat Matlala? Today's testimony, I mean, we're going to hear a new witness linked to Kat Matlala's Medicare 24 contract. I mean, we've spoken about other enterprises that he's been involved in. Okay, we've got the emergency services on their way. Hopefully they get where they're going in morning traffic. But speaking of Medicare, I mean, this was the enterprise that Kat Matlala was involved in. He seems to have allegedly, you know, many ties to many enterprises across Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. Is he a unique? Are there more individuals? Because as you said, Mkhwanazi had a particular thing in mind, I think, when he blew the whistle effectively in October last year. In July last year. Could there be more?
There is more, and we have to be careful there, Iman, because I think part of the situation we face ourselves is that those who have been working systematically to undermine the state, and I don't say that lightly, there are those who have seriously thought that essential services like Medicare, medical care, education, policing should be private enterprises as opposed to public enterprises. So those who have pursued the privatization of essential state services, they have mostly benefited significantly from the fact that that's an essential service and that we are willing to pay for it, that the state pays 2 to 3 times more because they are claimed to be more efficient simply because they're private. And that switch from public to private has come at the cost of quality care to lots of citizens across this country.
And that's really where, like the taxi tires, you know, that's where the rubber hits the road. Many of the people that we've been and it's really incredible, and I must tell the team in Johannesburg as well, that many of the people here are so interested in what's happening with the Commission. Almost everybody that greets us, as you see, is interested in what's happening in the Commission, will come by, very interested in the news itself. We underestimate the connection to the importance of this moment for the lives of ordinary South Africans.
Absolutely.
And the return to doing the work of a public servant, because essentially they all are.
Absolutely. And if we can just understand this moment that we're in, if we almost lose this time, we're going to lose a generation of care, and we are unable then to improve the quality of people's lives. And it's going to come at a cost of the ordinary citizen.
In the 8 o'clock hour, I mean, we're going to dig deeper into the institutional culture, because it's the what next. We're heading towards the time in the next 2 months or so where the Commission is going to begin to conclude this very important work that it has started. We saw those referrals that the President has already made. But what is it going to mean institutionally and systemically? And we'll pick up that discussion a little bit later on. But again, as always, I mean, I have my questions based on my understanding of these things, but you have been working in the policing system in South Africa for a long, long time. There are things you're seeing that we might not obviously see. What are the things that are keeping you up at night, Eldred, as you hear this Commission do its work? In fact, the ad hoc committee as well, as you hear them do their work.
Well, one of the concerns for me has always been the question of the public and political governance of the police, because we keep talking about oversight over these essential institutions, both the judiciary and policing, health and education. And what we see is that there's been an absence of deliberate political engagement and monitoring of these essential institutions. We also see that we have a raft of recommendations that with earlier intervention, because we wait for that moment where we always want to do the heroic thing.
Yeah.
Yet we talk about long term as if it doesn't have to start today. Whatever we do today will affect the long term. There's no low-hanging fruits. This is a critical care situation. We have to do what we've already seen. My biggest concern, Iman, is that we don't take ourselves seriously as a country. And if we start taking ourselves seriously, we have the great ideas, we have the great energy, we have wonderful people. We need to get on and not let them down.
Thank you so much, Eldred, for that. As we continue, Arabile, to cut through the noise, there's an incredible amount of noise here on the streets of the country's capital as ordinary South Africans go about their business. We saw some people coming off their shifts, stopping by just to say hi, to ask what the latest was in the Commission. We have to be incredibly laser focused on, again, what this moment represents for us to finally sweep our law enforcement complex clean. Back to you.
Iman, thank you so much for that analysis as well from Eldred de Klerk, a significant and poignant one as we continue to see pretty much how the case continues to flow, how the commission